The mother of one of Kenyel Brown's alleged victims once answers.
A search for one man who may be connected to 5 murders in Metro Detroit. This is Kenyel Brown, a man police want to get off the streets.
And U.S. Attorney Matthew Schneider acknowledges that for a period of time, Brown was a law enforcement informant. And he's,
you come to my house and you tell me why my son was murdered by a man that was working for you. Then I let it rest.
Today, we're going to unravel the twisted tale of Kenyel Brown, a Detroit drug dealer who somehow managed to become a DEA informant and a serial killer. Buckle up, because this one's a wild ride. Our story begins with Kenyel Brown, a 40-year-old man from Detroit with a criminal record that could rival War and Peace in length. Brown had been arrested for everything from carrying concealed weapons to fleeing from police officers and even causing death while evading authorities. You'd think with a rap sheet like that, he'd be locked up tighter than Fort Knox. But oh no, Brown had a trick up his sleeve. In a move that can only be described as a cosmic joke, Brown was released from federal custody on October 29th, despite multiple probation violations. How, you ask? Well, it turns out some unidentified federal agency thought it would be a brilliant idea to use Brown as an informant for the Detroit Police Department and the DEA in a joint task force. What could possibly go wrong? Apparently a lot. Brown was about as useful as a chocolate teapot when it came to providing valuable information. He managed to complete one measly operation, which turned out to be a colossal failure. The powers that be paid him a paltry $150 for his supposed insider knowledge on gang activity and drugs in southwest Detroit, but it led to absolutely nothing. No arrests, no busts, just a waste of time and money. But wait, it gets better. While working as an informant, Brown allegedly decided to go on a killing spree, murdering 6 innocent people over the course of 6 weeks. It's like he woke up one morning and thought, you know what? Being an informant is boring. I think I'll try my hand at being a serial killer instead.
A search for one man who may be connected to 5 murders in Metro Detroit. This is Kenyel Brown, a man police want to get off the streets.
Investigators believe he's connected to 3 murders in River Rouge and 2 in Detroit. The latest happened overnight on Detroit's east side. A man was found shot to death in a vacant home on Minnesota near John R. Detroit police are calling Brown a person of interest. Coco McAvoy is live downtown outside of the U.S. Marshal's office. And Coco, what do we know about this man?
So the U.S. Marshals say he's from the Downriver area. They also say that he is armed and dangerous, but he's able to befriend people, so they want him in custody as soon as possible.
This is a situation where every day he's out there, somebody's at risk.
U.S. Marshal Aaron Garcia is part of the team searching high and low for Kenyel Brown.
We have the U.S. Marshals, ATF, we have a task force assembled working 24/7, Detroit Police Department, Michigan State Police. We have a joint task force with several agencies working around the clock.
That's because Brown is either the suspect or a person of interest in connection to 5 different homicides in River Rouge and Detroit.
It's somebody who's obviously on some kind of crime spree. We need to stop it.
Garcia says Brown follows the same M.O.
We know that he's befriending people, you know, at gas stations, you know, on the street, and you know, he don't really have money. He has a weapon on him. He's violent.
But still, Garcia says people are taking Brown in to hide him from the authorities.
They're allowing him into their houses, and then we get another situation that we're looking at now as a person of interest.
Brown has ties to River Rouge and Ecorse, but has been spotted in Detroit and Highland Park, too.
Who knows where he's at now, where he's moving to.
The U.S. Marshals are offering a $10,000 reward for any information leading to Kenyel Brown's arrest. And if you see Brown, of course, do not approach him, but make sure to call police. Back to you.
Yeah, and Coco, you mentioned that the authorities think that people are letting Brown stay with them in their homes. Do they think he might be paying people for that?
So the U.S. Marshals say that he does not have any money, but they believe that he's able to somehow convince people to let them stay in their homes. But they have a message for those people. They want to make sure that they know that they will, too, be charged in this.
All right. Thank you, Coco.
Detroit Police Chief James Craig claims that they had no idea about Brown's violent past, or they would have never brought him on as an informant. Craig blamed miscommunication during Brown's transfer from the ATF to the DPD DEA task force, stating that they were not informed about his extensive history of probation violations. It's like playing a game of telephone, but with people's lives at stake.
What I'm getting now preliminarily is that our DPD officer assigned to that task force was unaware of these failures or violations of his release. Unaware. Again, had we known, this is not a person we would have wanted to use.
Chief Craig is talking about Brown's criminal history that includes gun and drug crimes and a messy list of probation violations that has a lot of people asking if he should have been in prison instead of free and listed as an informant until...
Now, here's where the plot thickens. It turns out that U.S. District Judge Bernard Friedman was the one who released Brown from federal custody at the request of some mysterious federal law enforcement agency. The judge even had the audacity to give Brown a little motivational speech telling him to stay out of trouble and that he was entitled to a break. Well, I guess we can all see how well that worked out. As the bodies began to pile up, authorities finally started to connect the dots. They realized that maybe, just maybe, Brown wasn't the model informant they thought he was. On February 3rd, they deactivated him after learning he was a suspect in a double homicide. Talk about closing the barn door after the horse has bolted. Brown's alleged victims were a diverse group, including Lauren Harrington, Kimberly Green, Dorian Patterson, Garcias Woodyard, Amir Thaxton, and Eugene Jennings. Each one a life cut short, a family left to grieve, all because someone thought it was a good idea to give a career criminal a break. The story reaches its dramatic conclusion with Brown leading authorities on a high-stakes chase before ultimately taking his own life in the backyard of a suburban Detroit home.
And we have two big breaking stories. First at 4, an intense manhunt for a serial killer suspect in Detroit ends in gunfire, leaving that suspect dead. Also, a student drowns in the pool at Mumford High School. We have crews working both stories right now. Let's start with the search for that armed and dangerous man. It has all come down to a deadly ending in Oak Park. Let's go over to Local 4's Victor Williams. He joins us live from the scene. He was the first crew on the scene. Victor, what can you tell us?
Well, first off, this was a very intense situation. Me and my cameraman, Zach, we were the only ones here when we saw everything going down. We saw officers rushing to that backyard that you're looking at right over there on Ridgedale in Oak Park. We heard one single gunshot, and we believe that that was Mr. Kenyel Brown shooting himself. We saw him then being taken away on the stretcher. Right now, the chief is doing a press conference right over there. We pulled ourselves away so we could do this live shot really quickly, but once again, it looks like Kenyel Brown is in custody. Of course, he did shoot himself. Reporting live, Victor Williams, Local 4, but we are going to go ahead quickly right now to something that the chief said earlier.
I was seen by a clerk at the bookstore. He'd been there in the past. He would ingest what he described as smoking rock cocaine. On today's date, no evidence that he was doing that. However, he was in there, and they wanted him to leave. But they recognized him from news reports. So at that point, 12 Precinct responded in very quickly. A couple of our neighborhood police officers were first on the scene. He had already left the location, so they began to check the area. At some point, they became aware that he may have crossed 8 Mile into the city of Oak Park. He did do that. We then, as we continued our search, certainly with the assistance from Oak Park, we then began to search the area. And at some point, Oak Park and our officers, after there was a canine search, saw him. He began to evade the officers' attempt to detain him. At some point, as he jumped a fence and went into a rear yard of a residence, he fired a single shot into his head.
Now, the homeowner, they understood all this was going on. They noticed the man in the backyard, and from there, they called police. And of course, they all ended up here to take this man into custody. We'll have more of that at 5 p.m. For now, we are reporting live in Oak Park. Victor Williams, Local 4.
All right, we'll let you get back to the chief's press conference and gather more information. We'll see you at 5. Thank you, Victor.
A fitting end to a man who left a trail of destruction and heartbreak in his wake. So there you have it, folks. The mind-boggling tale of Kenyel Brown, the world's most incompetent informant. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of cutting deals with criminals and the importance of thorough background checks, because sometimes the monsters we create come back to haunt us in the most horrific ways imaginable. But hey, at least we can all sleep soundly knowing that the authorities have learned their lesson, right? Only time will tell. This has been Eagle, your host on True Crime Legacy, reminding you to stay vigilant, stay safe, and always question the decisions of those in power. Until next time, keep your wits about you, and remember, trust is earned, not given.